I think you're going to see more of these kind of incubations of getting athletes together in terms of like one platform, if you will, being able to present deals through that platform to athletes. And then from there, they've got the VC arm kind of connected, or VC person connected.
All right, we're back with another episode of the Constant Sports Podcast. Today we have Sterling Mack from Sports Tech Atlanta join us today. What's up, Sterling? How's it going?
Connor, I'm good. Thanks so much for having me, man. Yeah, it's fun to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We're talking about kind of the rise of sports tech, ecosystem in sports, what you're building, you and the team at Sports Tech Atlanta. A lot of fun stuff, in the AI, data, like I said, venture capital, kind of the whole. A lot of that stuff, but then also we have Sterling played baseball at Indiana, so we get a athlete's perspective on things, kind of post NIL, pre NIL, all that good stuff. And to start us off, Sterling, let's talk about a little bit of kind of your journey with Sports Tech Atlanta at the intersection of sports and obviously tech. So kind of what made this an opportunity that you wanted to go down as a career?
Yeah, like you said, I played baseball in college there at Indiana University. So I was in San Francisco at the time and wanted to kind of find my way back to sports. I actually did some stuff for Major League Baseball when I was living in San Francisco. And I found this sport techie event, and I went to it and was kind of blown away. I was like, oh, you can merge technology and the VC aspect or the financial aspect into sports here. And when I moved back to the Atlanta area, kind of right before COVID kind of hit there, I tried to jump into it and actually kind of found my way to a athlete VC, which is called Beyond the Game Network. One of my buddies actually had spun it up, and so I was able to kind of work with them doing business development with their portfolio companies, with their athletes, really kind of learning the tricks of the trade, everything that goes into what is sports technology. Now that's a word. Before, I feel like 2019, 2020, it was still kind of this, it's still niche, but it was even more niche then. And yeah, I was able to, from there, I was like, all right, I think I can kind of figure this out and start my own thing. And so I started Sports Tech Atlanta as an ecosystem, and it's really just evolved from there.
Perfect. So it's kind of that genesis of being in the space, seeing what's around, being an athlete, kind of building it from there. And then as far as, the name, is that strictly from because you were in Atlanta, or was it always you wanted sports tech and then whatever city you ended up in?
Yeah, it was always because I was there, and I'm born and raised there. I still have my 404 number. I was born in like Northside Hospital. For the people that are affiliated with Atlanta, that's like a whole thing. So yeah, that's why I when I was back, I didn't want it to be this like very Atlantic centric thing. Obviously, we started out working with like Georgia Tech and Georgia State, West Georgia, then kind of grew, worked with like the MLS team as well, really early on. But I knew I wanted this to be more of like a global kind of thing, and I've just kind of kept the name as we've evolved here.
Got it. And then as you've been evolving, what's that, been like? What are the steps to it? Kind of, I know you've done some international stuff as well. So is that, more of international play? What's kind of going on there?
Yeah, we've been incredibly lucky. I think what we've wanted to do, and as this has evolved, we've become an advisory, and we've got strategic partners all over, whether that's truly kind of individual partners or advisors that work with us, or larger entities that are like full-scale kind of consultancies that we've partnered with. And so that's enabled us to be attached to larger opportunities, whether that's a SailGP, a Global Champions League. We're working on a FIBA loyalty platform, investment, and app right now. And we also, I think, have started to be a nice kind of pipeline for companies that are outside of the United States and getting them here into the U.S., helping them with strategy and business development. One of our successes is team sports. We're even having, I've got some calls today with them as well, with some of our potential clients. So yeah, I like where we're situated, and obviously we're continuing to kind of grow and put ourselves in a nice position to be able to kind of move sport forward.
Right. And is that when you were first starting out, after you were done playing baseball, when you first started, did you envision something like this, or was it a different kind of sports tech, sector, or was this kind of what you had always ended up wanting to do?
It's a great question. I wanted this to be so when I first like thought of this or thought through the conception of this. Like I said, I lived in San Francisco, so Intel Sports and SAP Sports were they both had these sales and sports tech kind of business sectors, right? Kind of like within their sales teams. And so I always kind of envisioned it in that way, in a sense, being able to work with technology, broker these deals. I think it wasn't until I worked with Beyond the Game Network and saw what the opportunity was within the early stage side or with the startup side, and understanding that a lot of these leagues, teams, people just don't get a lot of access to what new technologies are out there and how those technologies can help shape or can help to kind of move whatever they're kind of doing within sport forward. And so, yeah, it's evolved in that way. But I think I always wanted it to kind of be very tech centric, just from my time
Yeah,
in San Francisco.
for sure. And then as far as I'm interested in kind of the maybe the undervalued sectors and also the overvalued sectors in your opinion. But when you have athlete health, recovery, we've seen that fan engagement, sports betting, data, whatever it is, AI. What are some undervalued and then maybe some over kind of saturated markets in your opinion, kind of in the sports tech or just in the tech scene right now?
Yeah, I think it's tough because I mean, I use Claude every day, but I think the phrasing of AI is a little oversaturated. I think everyone's trying to figure out. I get so much inbound right now where it's like, I've created this next AI yada yada thing in sports.
Yep.
Like, I mean, maybe you have, but I think a lot of the applications we already have out there do a lot of things that people are trying to conceptualize. I would say undervalued. I think a couple things. I think biomechanics are still kind of a thing that's really kind of coming. You just saw Plantiga's partnership with Unrivaled. I think you're going to see more of those. There's more companies that are trying to figure out how can we not be this big wearable that people like. Catapult's amazing, right? But how can we take that and make it a little bit smaller, make it a little bit more invasive for the athlete, and also get some of the same readings? I think future of work is also huge. You saw there was a partnership with the Timberwolves and really all of their teams, right, with the Minnesota and Alex Rodriguez
Minnesota.
and everything that they're doing, but called Jump. And they're pulling ticketing and fan engagement and sponsorship all under one platform. I think you're going to see more of that. The Clippers have done that as well with their own proprietary kind of platform. But I think you're going to see more of those kind of future of work, or how do we tie all of this together as kind of something that I think is very undervalued right now. And obviously, too, I would say partnerships, sponsorships, like how can those kind of match up? I think that's kind of the other thing that people are trying to figure out, especially obviously around women's sports.
Yeah, for sure. And then, as you mentioned, figure it out. It made me think about how you were talking about kind of helping bridge the, gap or whatnot from international companies trying to come to the states. And so, is that still? I mean, the United States is kind of one of the biggest sports arms. And so, is that where a lot of these international companies are trying to? They test out the product maybe overseas, and then when they're ready, they bring it to the states. Or where are you seeing that kind of success?
It's a little bit of that. To be honest, I mean, sports technology has been more of a thing in Europe for a long time, especially like Germany, Spain, with what they do within the Premier League, how big football/soccer is over there. And so for us being a pipeline, to your point, everyone wants to find American dollars. And
Yeah.
how to do that is I think changing because the World Cup is here this year, and then we move into the Olympics in 28. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, does our technology solution work with these leagues and teams that are in America? We have a lot of emerging leagues as well that are kind of popping up, and then vice versa. I mean, like handball, netball, rugby, these sports that are a little bit bigger over there, they've already kind of tested out some sports tech. And so it's like, can we move this into baseball? Can we move this into football? And so I think those are kind of the questions that we are able to kind of help alleviate and answer for companies that are trying to find a pipeline into America.
I love it, and as you said, kind of with the heel being on the heels with the World Cup and the Olympics, I think that America has a lot of, I guess, international sports coming in with the World Baseball Classic, obviously, just going on right now, and so. I guess side question: thoughts on the World Baseball Classic as a baseball player? I didn't have this in the outline, so I'm kind of putting it on you right now. But
No.
thoughts about the World Baseball Classic coming on?
I love it. I've been a fan for a long time. I grew up with like the golden age of baseball with the Jeters and the Griffeys and everything. So when it started, it was, I think, super cool. It's always been this like really fun tournament. Now I think what it really does is it's a great job. Baseball's so regional now. I don't know how you feel about baseball, but like, now being like most of my time on the West Coast, and then even when I go back, I do go to a fair amount of Braves games when I'm back, but I still feel like before you had TBS and WGN, so the Braves and the Cubs and the White Sox, like these big teams, even the Mets with SNY, like you saw them all the time. Now with the way the TV packages are and everything, you just don't see baseball players the same way you used to. And I think the WBC is a great way for players that you might have forgot about, like Julio Tehran, right, was like playing for the Dutch team. You're able to see some of these up and coming kids, like a Norai or Andrew Jones' son. And I think it's cool to be able to kind of see that. And obviously the passion, like fans around the globe love baseball, and I think it's cool to be reminded of that.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I love the passion. I think I've seen a bunch of people talking about how they want that, in like regular season games, and they would get tossed out in a half of a second, dude. Like I'm a Padres fan, and Tatis, he's borderline, with his passion in season, and in the World Baseball Classic, I mean, I'm all for it, but they would get run so fast. But I just think it's funny that they're letting him play and letting them show the passion when they're hitting homers.
It's tough to do two in 162 games. It's hard. It's tough to keep
Yeah,
that
true.
fire up.
Yeah, they'd burn out. They'd burn out opening weekend if they kept that up.
Yeah.
So as far as you talked about Cell GP and some of these other up and coming leagues as well. But do you think? And Cell GP, or rather, is more kind of an international league, up and coming league that is trying to get its roots planted and whatnot. But where do you see kind of the, I don't want to say tier 2 leagues, but you have your Power 4. Where do you see those leagues as far as unrivaled? Do you see more of them popping up? Do you see a kind of a consolidation? What are your thoughts on that in the emerging league space?
Yeah, I think we're going to see more popping up. Obviously, I think Love B is doing an amazing job. I think I would look at where the youth are, right, in terms of the pipeline of players. That's why I think volleyball and Love B and Major League Volleyball are in such an advantageous position, because there's such a pipeline of youth players that play volleyball. Basketball is very similar, right? There's more people getting into, more girls getting into basketball, so that pipeline is there. There's actually a few other leagues that have popped up. Women's Premier Basketball that's trying to take shape and be kind of that amateur kind of pipeline into the WNBA. There's also like a FIBA kind of 3-on-3 one. That Atlanta McDonald started. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be more. You're going to see Baller League, which started in the UK, which is kind of that, like, a different take on football/soccer. That's going to hit here in the United States pretty soon. But you've even had these, like, ancillary sports. I don't know if you've seen. There's one where it's just an Oklahoma drill, right? It's kind of like rugby/Oklahoma drill.
Is it Run It or?
Yeah, where it's Run It, exactly. And so I think you're just going to have more. I think everyone's trying to figure out how, because of content, right? Because there's so much content, can we find a way to carve out, a niche, or find our people within this like universe of content that we have, this catalog of content. So I think you're going to see more and more kind of different leagues pop up. Even, what Alexis Ohanian has done like around the track verse, right? So, I think more and more is going to be coming. I think the question is going to be what the staying power of some of these leagues are going to be.
Right, no doubt. And I just think with all these leagues, like the fans only have so much attention, right? Like you were saying, we have so much time to watch. If we have 15 leagues, and we got to get different league passes, and we got cable and all your streaming services. Like, I'll just be interested to see the consolidation. 10, 15 years, if it's just kind of one, back to three channels and everything just on those three, or if it continues to, break out. But kind of switching lanes a little bit into the investor space, sports investing, investments. I know you guys have some, like investor red flags documents and some other, I guess they're like books, kind of online ebooks, or is it more like a call? What's kind of that breakdown on your website?
Yeah, we have these services built out for your startup journey. And I think one of the things, especially as I've jumped into this, you talked about at the beginning, being an athlete, there's so many athletes that get into this and they have really no idea kind of where to go or how to navigate this. And so we've created services that are, one, on the cheaper side, just because I think it's hard to be a founder, right? A lot of times you're bootstrapping, you're still working your 9 to 5, and then you've got your 5 to 9, right, which is your startup. So we've tried to create services that people can kind of plug and play with, to your point, whether it's a checklist, investor red flags, different things of that nature that I think help people along their journey. And then obviously we have other, more robust services where you can work with myself or some of our other advisors, or even some of our strategic advisors as well, to be able to kind of figure out how to I like to say, getting people from point A to point B, right? How can we do that the most effectively? And obviously in a way that's not going to break the bank as you're trying to figure out your startup.
Mm-hmm. And then where have you seen kind of in the athlete investing space, kind of what are your thoughts about the, I guess just in general, a broad question, but I'm just curious about, we've seen more and more athletes, like we saw Jalen Smith with Oura Ring. I mean, we're seeing a bunch of athletes kind of getting more involved in investing. Do you see that continuing? Do you see that kind of plateauing? Where do you see that in the future?
I do. I think you're going to see more of these, like the Players Company with Tom Zhang, Danny Cordenray has in Studio Ventures, Lake Nona has their locker room. I think you're going to see more of these kind of incubations of getting athletes together in terms of like one platform, if you will, being able to present deals through that platform to athletes. And then from there, they've got the VC arm kind of connected, or VC person connected, which kind of helps them to navigate what this deal could be and why it could be successful. I think you're going to see more and more of that. Obviously, a lot of people have money managers, things like that, but VC is a little bit different, right? And getting into this space is a little bit different than, just a traditional worker with like a Morgan Stanley advisor or something like that. And so I think, and obviously athletes want to be a part of this, right? There's so many ways too, whether it's being a brand advisor, the sweat equity, or just truly your financial ability there. So yeah, I think more and more athletes are going to want to get in the space. You saw Saquon Barkley's portfolio was kind of released mid last year, which had all the top kind of tech companies out there, and I think it's cool because you could also align everyone's not going to be able to get to TV, right? We just talked about content. I know there's a lot of content, but everyone can't get on TV, but you can get into these boardrooms. You can find ways of working with these companies after your playing days. And I think that's a cool thing that guys can do, or find an avenue to do through VC and through sports investing.
Definitely, yeah, and especially getting connected with those right avenues and whatnot. And speaking of kind of the matchmaking and getting connected, I know you guys just recently launched your, is it strategic matchmaking service? That's the full title. So talk to us a little bit about that. Kind of what was the genesis of that? I think you just started, so let me know how's it going.
Yeah, we started it back late last year. We started trying to onboard and do a couple pilots. Yeah, I mean, the thought, like I said earlier, is just try to have these plug-and-play kind of aspects to what we bring to startup, really to founders and to startups. But then we wanted to think about the fact that we're working with leagues and teams. Like I said earlier, sometimes you don't know who and what these technologies are, what they can do. And so trying to find a way where projects and RFPs are available, and then our matchmaking service will match it up to any startup that's kind of in our system already. So I think it's a great way for people to be able to find new companies, for companies to find new projects. Everyone's trying to do that, but we're not in person. I know we're doing this in Zoom on like Zoom right now. Like it's we're not in person a ton. Before, we used to go to happy hour and you'd meet somebody, be like, "Oh, I'm doing the same thing. Let's follow up and like grab a coffee or grab a drink." Now everything is so virtual, so we're trying to meet people where they are, and hopefully be able to bridge that gap within sports and tech of making matchmaking, especially partnerships, a little bit easier.
Yeah, I love it, and I would love, as a former college baseball player, I'd love your thoughts. Kind of, if you could put a crystal, hand on a crystal ball, think about NIL, college baseball, college sports, in the future. Where do you see kind of the NIL, kind of the biggest opportunities? I just, as an athlete, I love to hear kind of the inside scoop on where you think, just in general, do you think we're transfer portals being shut down? Do you think one-time transfer? Kind of, what are your thoughts on that sector?
I do think there needs to be a couple guardrails. Like, it's interesting. It should be a free market, right? That's what we've kind of created here, is a free market. But I do think I've said this a couple times, like on Threads and on Twitter, or X, sorry, is that we're going to get down the line and we're going to have all these student athletes that had the ability to make some money, and then now they didn't get the right degree. You transferred 3-4 times. I have no idea what degree you would have at that point, right? Now your ability to be attached to money is different. Your mental health probably changes from that. So I think we're just going to run into a lot of problems from how we've done things here early on. So yeah, I would like to see them, like when I played, you had to sit out a year if you transferred. So I think we should just put in, I think, a very simple rules, right? Like if your coach leaves, you're automatically able to leave with them. If not, you can leave once with no penalty, and after that it'd be like a penalty of sitting out or something like that. I think what I think is also going to happen, though, to your point on just the NIL aspect, and you're starting to already see it, it's going to be more of it's a contract, right? And so these contracts are going to be, you have to be here for 2 years, and you got to play, let's use football, you got to play in the bowl game, you got to do X, Y, and Z, you got to go to class. And so I think as we see more of those type of structures, that's going to get a little tricky, because then it's like, are they an employee? Are they not an employee?
Yep.
With kind of antitrust and how the NCAA kind of starts to, I think, shed a little bit. But I do think that'll be better. And actually, I think that's why this NCAA tournament's going to be so fun. It's the first time in a long time, really last couple of years, right, where you've got guys that have been in college for a long time. Like it was kind of in the 90s, right? And so the play is so much better. So I think it's going to be long term. I think it's a good thing, but we've got to find some guardrails for teams to be able to build and to also, I think, to protect some of the players.
Agreed. Yeah, I think the transferring 4 times in 5 years doesn't make any sense to me for a lot of reasons. But then also, like in college basketball, you can play, basically you're in school for a semester, and then you're in the NBA draft in the second semester, and then in football you got to play a few. So I think it's hard, but Pandora's box is already open, so there's nothing to really do now but kind of just bat down some of the hatches. And then as far as kind of the future for Sports Tech Atlanta, what are you kind of excited with? Where do you see the company growing, different markets? Obviously, no trade secrets, but yeah, where do you guys see yourself going in the next few years?
Yeah, I'm excited about continuing our journey as we've actually just onboarded a few new advisors. I think we're going to get to a place where we're really this full scale advisory consultancy working across startups, leagues, and teams. And I think I'm super excited about that. I think the hope is, as this continues to grow, that we'll attach a little bit of our own fund to this and be able to deploy funds throughout sports and sports technology ourselves. And yeah, I'm excited about that. Excited about some of the work we're already doing, and some of the ways that we're attaching ourselves to some of the bigger players that are out there, and hopefully that'll be a good thing in the long run, and kind of give us a nice kind of tailwind to do some things we want to do.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt, love it. And as we kind of get it wrapping up here, what would be some, if you go back to Sterling as a 21-year-old, 20-year-old, what would you kind of say to yourself as you, embark? We're about to embark on your journey here.
I wish I could. I would tell myself I think I always balked at the idea of like private equity or venture capital, and obviously didn't really know exactly what that is. I wish I would have found my way into some sort of financial kind of services earlier, just understood that more. And yeah, to try to take advantage of some of the resources. That back to kind of what you said about people transferring. I love the fact that I went to Indiana. There's so many resources there. I wish I would have tapped into some of those resources around the Kelly School right after I got out of school instead of trying to kind of figure it out. That's the advice I think I would give myself.
Yeah, no, yeah, well, sage advice there. And I think, kind of as we wrap up here, where can the listeners, followers, athletes, whoever, find you and kind of what you're building at Sports Tech Atlanta?
Yeah, you can find me at Steve Mack. I think I'm pretty everywhere. Instagram, Threads, Twitter, all the things. It's Sports Tech Atlanta, so www.sportstechatlanta.com is where you can find us. We're also Sports Tech Atlanta on Twitter, Threads, and then we also have a podcast too that kind of details some of the things we're doing and just talking sports and sports tech, which is at the Sea Talk Podcast. So you can find me at all three of those places. We have a blog, a newsletter with Sports Tech Atlanta. So I think a lot of touch points depending on how you like to get your sports and tech news.
Perfect, love it. Yeah, we'll link all those and send all those out as we release this episode. We appreciate you jumping on today, Sterling, and getting a deep dive in the sports tech sector, kind of what you've been building, and we're looking forward to watching your growth and especially the company's growth here in the next few years and beyond that. So thanks again for coming on, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Connor. Really appreciate this, man. This is awesome.